Welcome to the MOE podcast.
A place where individual stories come to life.
This is how we need to be communicating with people. This is how we support people's personal development.
It's important to speak about people believing in people.
The more you're able to let go of your limitation, the more you step into your power, your inner authentic power.
MOE, a place for me, others, everyone.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the MOE Podventures. I'm joined by Isaac Davis. Isaac, welcome.
Hi, how are you today?
Yeah, feeling good on this cold morning. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you like to go through life without referencing your job title, your age, or your relation to anyone else.
I always love this question. I think it's such a difficult question, but also one of the most important ones as well. How do I describe myself without labeling anything? I am a person who's constantly trying to be a little bit better than yesterday. I like people. I like learning. I like cats. I like reading. I overthink a little bit too much. I fail a lot. And I rebuild. And I'm someone who used to be very disconnected from myself, and I'm learning how to come home to who I am. So yeah, like everyone else, I'm a work in progress.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I would say that I'm a seeker, in the most like human sense, in terms of, I like to understand the human condition and the world. So yeah, I'm very adventurous in that respect. Yeah, I guess those would be ways to describe me. I guess on a normal day, you'd either find me reading or in the gym, or yeah, working on something like a little project. Yeah, or just having one of these kind of conversations with someone.
Yeah, just your normal Wednesday morning podcast conversation. Yeah, of course. Amazing, thank you. Yeah, that question it does really get to the heart of things, and I think one of the ways that I sometimes think about answering it is, what would you be likely to find me doing on a random Tuesday afternoon? Oh yeah, who am I on those days? Not like my best days, but just like, yeah, what might I typically be doing? Can be quite nice. And tell us next how you first came to find out about coaching.
So I actually first heard of coaching like many years ago, but it didn't hit my radar as coaching. It was, I thought it was kind of in these other boxes, we talk about like labeling things, it's like, oh, they're this or they're that, and it didn't quite hit my radar. And as you learn about coaching, you kind of go back over things that you've seen and people that you've known. You're like, oh, right, that was coaching. That's why it was so powerful for me, right? But I actually, I first had an interaction with coaching couple of years ago, and it was actually from a place of having no freedom. I was actually in prison. And there's this amazing organization called Spark Inside who are filled with a bunch of wonderful human beings, and essentially what they do is they go into prisons and they run something called the Hero's Journey, and it's a 6-week course. And the beautiful thing about the Hero's Journey is that it's spoken about like a cycle, of these different stages that you go through, which is a good representation, of life. And during that time, I was kind of like lost, I was lost, and I wasn't sure exactly where I was going in terms of my direction in life. And not only did I, encounter this amazing course, but I also encountered my coach, who is still my coach now, and she is, again, a wonderful human being. And the process has been quite interesting because, she's started coaching me, and then I was like, well, I want to be a coach. So it's been quite an interesting dynamic of like, and the amazing thing about it is that one of the reasons that she's such an incredible coach is that it must be so difficult for her to not give me advice, because she's a coach and that's what I want to do, and for her to not just be like, no, what are you doing? Like, and I'm sure there's times that she just wants to shake me and be like, no, this is, what you need to do. But she doesn't, she doesn't. And she listens and lets me reflect. And as she's doing that, two things happen. One thing is that I'm watching great coaching happening in front of me. But then I'm also being coached as well by an amazing coach. So, yeah,
Brilliant.
Yeah. So,
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like despite a real opportunity to give you some powerful mentoring, given their like wealth of experience in this position, they are choosing to remain in this pure coaching. And have you developed these ideas yourself?
yeah. Well, I think as well that she's been with me through the majority of my journey, and when I first went into prison, there was a kind of element of I my story about going to prison, which I won't go into too much detail, but essentially it was I was trying to help some people, but in the wrong way.
Mm,
And you know I got to prison and I was like, right, okay, now I still have this innate thing where I would like to support people,
mm,
and but I don't, obviously doing that is not in the way that I was doing it is not gonna, not turning out very well for me.
mm,
So I need to, figure out how I can still do that thing that is my dharma,
hmm
that thing that I love, but in a way that's not gonna either get me in trouble or be something that, is gonna have repercussions.
Yeah.
But then I was like, hey, I'm in prison, and in this particular prison, it was a BCAT trainer in London. So at that time, they were still running COVID regime as well, which
Okay.
means that we were locked behind our cell doors for 23 hours a day. So they let you
Mm,
out just for an hour, right? Just to like shower, have a bit of time in the yard, and all those kind of things. So for me, you know, learning how to be a coach was like impossible. It
hmm
was about as close to impossible as something could be.
Yeah.
How am
Yeah.
I going to become a coach right now, right?
hmm
Um, but I mean, just by me telling you that I've been to prison, you probably get the idea that I'm a little bit rebellious, and I like to play this game that's called "How Do I Make the Impossible Possible?"
Uh-huh.
Right? Um, so I was sitting in my cell, and I was thinking, right, I would like to mentor and coach and do those kind of things. And there's another beautiful organization called the Shannon Trust who also work in prisons, and they help men and women who have challenges with reading and writing,
hmm
and they train some of the prisoners to be able to go through these series of books.
Mm,
Um, so I became a Shannon Trust mentor,
mm.
um, and I also became a listener with the Samaritans.
Yeah.
And this mentoring, coaching, kind of thing went from being like 100% impossible to being like 5-10% possible now.
Yeah.
Like now I'm out of my cell, I'm supporting people emotionally, I'm doing a little bit of mentoring, and
You can imagine it.
and yeah, so and then Spark Inside came along, and I was on the Hero's Journey course, and I was like, oh, so like this coaching thing is like actually a thing. Like these people do this for a job.
Mm.
Like that's amazing. So then I was like, okay, well now it's like, 20-25% possible, right? Like this
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
really starting to happen now. And then, I speak to my coach and I say, look, this is really what I want to do. And by this point, I'd also done, a level one in peer mentoring. I was started my psychology degree, and I read about 50 books on these kind of things as well, that I have to get one book out from the prison library and then take it back and read another one. And so I kind of gone through this process, but then I was like, well, I need to do a course, and there aren't, it's quite a niche thing. Like, there aren't how to be a coach courses in prison, right? Like, if you want to do like your GCSE and maths and English, cool, but that isn't a thing. So then I was like, right, okay, so how can I make this, this still impossible thing a little bit more possible? So, and eventually I was, because I had exemplary behavior while I was in custody, I was transferred to what they call open conditions, which means that when you go to a DCAT, they let you out on release on temporary license.
Yep.
So as soon as I got that letter that I was like, oh, you're going to an open condition prison, I was like, well, maybe I'll be able to do the course there. Like, that would be awesome. Maybe I can, so I get to open conditions, and I send a handwritten letter I send one to Mo, I send one to Spark Inside, I send another one to like all these different coaching organizations. And I'm like, hi, I'm in prison and I really want to be a coach. Right. And and obviously I articulated myself a little bit better than that, but that was essentially,
that was the essence.
That was the essence of the letter. And naturally, a lot of places I didn't get a response. But I did get a response from Spark, and I did get a response from Mo.
Amazing.
And at Spark, they said, hey, we would love to sponsor you, because this was the other thing, right? How am I going to get the money for a coaching course, right?
Most of them are like,
yeah, do you know what I mean? So I was like, not only do I need to find a coaching course that will accept me on their course while I'm in prison, but I also need to find one where I can get sponsored, right? So so Spark.
Let me jump in here, because you've shared so much, and there's so many like rich jump off points I want to take us into. And first of all, just to say Spark Inside, and a big shout out to all the Mo coaches who have worked with Spark Inside and who've done that work. It feels like there's a real close link between Mo and Spark Inside. Tony Phillips, Jeffrey Wotherspoon, and Alex Whitten come to mind as Mo coaches that have done Spark Inside, and I always have been aware of their work, and just feels really meaningful. So to anyone listening, really great organization that we'd love to just celebrate. And then secondly, I'm so curious, when you were in fact, and before I ask this, you mentioned being in prison, and there's so many stories around criminality, around the justice system, around being in prison. What about your sentence would you like to clarify for anyone listening? Or what do you typically feel makes you more comfortable having expressed to people that you spent some time in jail?
Sure. Yeah. So this is something that I'm actually still learning, and I've kind of realized that there's no right way, to disclose something like that, because people, make opinions and have judgments and things. But yeah, I mean, essentially with my particular story, I worked on setting up a psychedelic assisted therapy website. And this was, during COVID, when I became very curious with the mental health epidemic that we had around that time, amongst many other things, and wanted to help and tried to help in the wrong way. And and it turns out that possessing psychedelics is incredibly illegal. So so and so I think the most important thing about any of these things is that we all make mistakes, and we all maybe make decisions with the best intentions that later on we go, oh hey, that was not right. And I think they say that hindsight is a wonderful thing, and I think sometimes I disagree. Because there is that element of like, we don't know what we don't know. So until we mess up and fail and have that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
experience, then we can look back and be like, oh, I shouldn't have done that in that way,
Yeah.
But um there's also something, I think, when it comes to the stigma of these things that I find very interesting and that I've seen quite a lot,
Hmm.
is that, some of the people that I met in prison and, and since that have had an experience of the criminal justice system in one way or another, they have some very interesting insights when it comes to freedom and choices,
Mm.
and what freedom really feels like, um, and what freedom really is as well,
Hmm.
um, which which I think is an important part of understanding life and our environment.
Yeah, what it means to be human. Or yeah, what it means to live in a society. Or yeah, wow. Um, Thank you. And when you heard about the hero's journey, how was it presented to you?
Well, what's quite funny is that a lot of things in prison, they don't need to be presented that well to the prisoners. All they need to say is, hey, it will get you out of your cell.
Mm.
And then everyone wants to sign up, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I
Me.
want to do
Yeah.
it. So, but actually for me, you know, it was like this is something that I'm actually really interested in. Like this is something that I actually really want to do.
Mm.
So there's obviously a lot of these guys signing up, like just, get me out of my cell, give me a bit of time off work. So I actually had to
Yeah.
kind of express to them like, no, I really want to do this. And it was kind of explained to me in a way that was like, you know, you come and explore everything with us. And by the end of it, we can't promise that anything else will be, any different, really. And I was like, I love that. But what actually ended up happening was
Yeah.
something was the opposite. It was, it completely changed everything for me because,
Mm.
and I don't think it was even in the way that it was intended because, obviously the hero's journey is about, exploring, these elements of your life and how they feel and maybe what some of those goals might be. But for me, watching the other men in that cohort go through that experience and watching the coach navigate that experience with them was the thing that inspired me. It was like I was kind of there with this
Right.
bird's eye view of the situation, being like, I want to do this,
Hmm.
like I love this. And seeing these men like have these questions asked to them and then this pause that was so powerful for me was like,
Yeah.
wow, like this guy's gonna go back to his cell now and he's really gonna like think about that. And then what the ripple effect that I saw after that
Yeah.
as well was like people coming up to me on the wing and being like, "Oh, hey man, you know that thing that we learned like on the hero's journey? Remember when she asked me that question? Yeah, like I've actually signed up for that thing and like I'm gonna do it now." Like, and for me,
Mm.
what it was that I got to see the power of coaching, and that was the thing that really affected
Hmm.
me. Um, so yeah, no, yeah,
Hmm.
Spark Inside, a massive shout out to them. They are an amazing organization. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And hearing that people were signing up as much for the opportunity to leave the cell as for any value. Um, how did it sit in that kind of inmate culture with it just being, with it just being something that was, hey, this is just another thing that's going to get us out of our cell, and then experiencing it. How did it sit?
Well, I think it's really interesting because there's a lot of courses in prison that are what we as prisoners would call box ticking courses. So like
Mm.
that level one in whatever that you need to do so that you can get a job or so that they'll
Mm.
transfer you to another prison or whatever.
Yeah.
But then there are some courses in there that are like you it's a real opportunity for you to understand and learn something. But I think that
Hmm.
these opportunities, they only get they only get seen by what people pay attention to. And I used to say this to some of the guys, they were like, "Oh, why are you doing all these courses?" And I'm like, "Because I don't know what any of them are going to be like. So I want to go and do them and then figure that out. Because right now I can't go and watch an advert
Hmm.
for it. Like, I and I'm
Mm.
choosing to pay attention
Yeah.
to opportunity rather than to lack. Um, which was a really important part of
Hmm.
my process, like going through prison was, I did my like CSCS card. Like I've never been really interested in construction or like any of those kind of things. But I was like, hey, and I learned some interesting things about health and safety and a few other things that I would have known otherwise.
Yeah.
So, there were a lot of things that I did that were, it was like people were like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, because I might be able to learn something or it might be interesting.
Mm.
And if I hadn't had that attitude, then I
Yeah.
might have, when the hero's journey came along, I might have been like, I don't know, I'll just go to the gym or whatever. Um, so I think one big lesson that I learned was being available to opportunity. I think being available to
Mm.
opportunity is, yeah, showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like you're a bit of a
Yeah.
collector.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And why not when we're time rich or energy rich or opportunity poor and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm ready. I'll ta I'll take it. And so thank you for letting me pause this and return back there. And so you wrote to Spark and received a response. You wrote to Mo. Are these
Yeah,
handwritten
so
letters or are
I
these
originally I
emails?
sent a handwritten letter and then I I got a job as like the chairman of the offender consultative committee, which sounds really complicated and posh, but essentially they
Uh-huh.
gave me a very small office in the prison and they gave me like a computer with no internet. And I became like a consultant for other
Uh-huh.
prisoners. And so then I that computer was
Yeah.
essentially like a glorified typewriter. So then I was able to like actually type up letters and
Right.
send them out. And then when I started going out for
Yeah.
work, I was able to send those emails. So originally they were handwritten letters. And I can't remember which ones
Hmm.
were responded to. I think Mo may have responded when I sent emails, I think.
Mm.
But yeah, no, they were,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I definitely have. I've probably still got them somewhere, actually, some letters. Yeah.
Right. That's great. Yeah, there's in my mind there's a certain romanticism associated with handwritten letters. And yeah, that's lovely. And so just to highlight for listeners who, like me, before I met you, Isaac, knew very little around incarceration and sentences. So you were at a prison with like a lenient enough category such that you were allowed leave for meaningful purposes like studying, like something that was going to be add value to your life.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, yeah, they call it release on temporary license, or we call them
Mm.
rottles. So you
Yeah.
get 5 days to go home and see your family, once a
Yeah.
month as well. So you get 4 overnight stays. You get one day in the local town, and then yeah, if you get a job as well, which is quite complicated, but if you do get a job,
Mm.
then yeah, you can go to work. If you go to university as well, you can actually go to the campus university. Obviously, there's a lot of security
Wow.
checks, and not all the men can
Hmm.
go, but yeah, for someone who's very very low risk, and has had really good behavior and all those kind of things, I was kind of my opportunities were, um,
Mm.
yeah, a bit more open. So yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. So I think by the end, I was only actually there for about. I managed to work it out, so I was only there for like one day a week or something, because I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
home leads and work and this and that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
great. Yeah. And so you completed the MO course while also while having the prison as your most permanent home. And yeah, I mean, coaching other people on the course while also being a serving inmate. What did that feel like?
Um, yeah, I mean, just even being on the course in the first place, I had this like imposter syndrome, right?
Mm,
Or what a university professor at that time was, she calls it imposterness. She says it's not a
mm,
syndrome, but yeah, I had this imposterness, and I felt like I'm not supposed to be here. But then at the same
mm,
time, I was also going to work in Starbucks just one day a week.
mhm,
And I also had this imposter syndrome, right? Like I was turning up to work, I was leaving prison in the morning, had
mhm,
45 minutes to get there. I was turning up to work, and then I was working in this Starbucks with, a load of people, and they were like, "Oh, hey, what's your story?" You know?
mm.
And I'm
Uh,
yeah, and I'm there and I'm like, and this is like a really busy drive-through Starbucks, so I can't just off the cuff be like, "Oh, just stay released from prison."
yeah,
Because without context, it's like, whoa.
yeah.
So I had a lot of these kind of interactions that were like, how can I refine this context so that I can tell this story to
Mm,
people? And I think with the Mo course, I was very kind of careful of not taking away from the course because I knew like how important it was to people, and so
mm,
I think I may have like informed one of the facilitators just so that they were aware, if for any reason I
mhm,
couldn't be there or something. Um, but yeah, so I had this kind of like imposter syndrome. But a part of me was like, at the same time, like I am meant to be here. Like,
mm.
this thing went from like 1% possible to 10% possible to 25% possible. And now I'm here and I'm actually on the
They're happening.
course,
Yeah.
right? I've like, I didn't just like fall into this. Like, this was something that for like almost 18 months, like I had been like every day, like thinking about and thinking, right, how can I make this happen? Like, what's the next
Mhm,
step? Like, how can I get there? Um, so yeah, like a large part of me just felt so like proud to be there and like,
mhm.
so excited to learn all these different like ways of listening and
Yeah.
yeah, like I was just really excited. But yeah, it was kind of a little bit, oh, when can we like do our coaching? Well, I have like this time or no time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I made it work, I made it work, and I think there was one day where I was like home on a home leave as well, so I had to like organize that because I wasn't at the
Mhm,
university for one of the weeks. So
mhm.
yeah, but yeah, I made it happen. Made it happen.
Okay. And yeah, a really interesting idea. So talking about being at work at Starbucks and having questions around, oh, how can I disclose this, or what can I disclose, and that's appropriate or that doesn't leave me, at real and fair risk of judgment. How do we choose how much we disclose to our coachees?
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult thing, because it's it's not about me, it's about them, right?
Mm,
So I think that I think in context, for me, I haven't felt the need. Um,
mm,
I haven't felt the need, and it's not like I've been trying to hide something, or it's been,
mhm,
oh, I'm ashamed of this, so I'm not going to tell them. Because you do kind of, I think
mm,
that's the thing with imposter syndrome, isn't it? Is that like you feel like there's an elephant in the room, like, oh, if I don't say this, then I'm lying. Um,
mhm,
but I think actually, if it comes up in context, if there's a story to tell, or there's an insight to be gained, or there's, you know, uh, something like that that's relevant in context, then I think, yeah.
mm.
Um, but otherwise, I think it's just like anything else that's happened in my life, I guess. It's something that
Mm.
I've learned from, and it's, you know, I don't know. It's somewhere that I went for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really interesting question in my mind, that idea around like disclosing to our clients. Like some people, like, I may be neurodivergent and feel the need to disclose ADD. tendencies to them, or like, hey, I can find I focus best when in conversation when I've got something to play with in my hands, and like, small disclosures like that. Or there might be a big disclosure like, hey, I had a really emotional thing happen to me yesterday, so there might be moments where I just need to take a pause. Or maybe even bigger things that might feel like that you need to disclose, and where there's always this consideration, like, is it going to make it harder for them to make progress?
Yeah.
Is it going to take the focus away from them? And how we can make that decision, and what guides us in making that decision in a way that is authentic and brave and honors the written and unwritten contract we have with our coachee.
Yeah. No, I think it's really important. I think it's actually one of the most important parts of coaching. And as I've, I'm still what they would call a baby coach. But
Someone who coaches babies.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still a very young coach. I haven't been coaching for a massive amount of time, but for me, one thing that I've started to understand about coaching is that, and I think it's one of the reasons why I love it so much, is coaching resembles love for me in a very symbolic way. And when you love someone, you give them that space to listen, you show up for them, and and when they've had that bad day at work, and they come home and you've also had a bad day at work, you know, you say, "Oh, hey, tell me more," and that's what coaching is. So for me, I feel like even if someone was like, "Oh, hey, like I've just got out of prison and, will you coach me?" I would say, "Yeah, sure." But I don't know if I would feel the need to share my experience with them in terms of, I mean, there may be, a specific insight that I would say, "Hey, do you mind if I share something with you that I think might be valuable?" But yeah, it's that feeling of love, isn't it? It's like, I'm just gonna sit in the mud with you right now and I'm gonna listen, you know.
Love that expression of sitting in the mud with you. Yeah, that's great. And when you think of, hey, it might not feel relevant for me to share this with them, when you had just finished serving your sentence and you just started coaching, how did it feel to you as something to disclose, or that didn't have that relevance?
When you go to prison, they kind of make you write like a disclosure letter, and it's very like robotic. It's like, "Hi, I've been, this is what I'm in for," and those sort of things. And they say you need to give those to all of your employers and everyone that you meet ever for the rest of your life.
Right.
But actually, from a legal perspective,
there's no obligation.
There is,
yeah,
like, So for me, yeah, I think that giving that disclosure did make me feel very vulnerable, in certain situations. So I think there is that element as well. How is someone going to see me? Are they going to think that, a world of different things, based on, because we hear the word prison, we hear the word, criminal, and there's, a lot of connotations that come with that. So, but then, and this was actually partly, through my coaching, that I realized that big part of my journey and coming to coaching was in my ability to be vulnerable in situations, which opened me up to more opportunities. And I think that being vulnerable is something that people actually respond to.
Absolutely.
And I think we're so afraid of that. And when I talk about working in Starbucks, what actually ended up happening was that I did disclose to everyone that was working there where I was coming from, and the response that I got was very different from what I was expecting.
Yeah.
It was full of compassion And is there anything that we can do to help? Oh, wow, I've got loads of questions. Like, please tell me
Mm.
more. And it was love, you know,
Mm.
and we expect people to judge us and we expect people to be like, oh, you know, dirty criminal or whatever. Um, but actually that's just the story that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, that's the story that we have. And the truth is that actually when we become vulnerable and we show our human side,
Mm.
that's when people go, oh wow, that's a human being in front
Yeah.
of me, you know.
And are really able to connect with us and like see this really obvious kind of like connection point that they can interact with of, oh yeah, this is human being and I know how to interact with human beings on that deep level, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, I don't expect you to be able to kind of answer this with any real like deep objectivity. Um, and I'm going to ask you to try. If you could zoom out and think about the coaching and the impact you have as a coach for your coachees, how did serving a sentence for a crime you'd committed in a prison, how has doing that impacted your coaching and the impact you're able to make as a coach?
Um, yeah, you're right. That's a really difficult question. I would say it's impacted my coaching in a similar way to how it's impacted me. Before I went to prison, I was not very good at sitting with myself and being present in a
Mm.
moment. I was not very good at listening. I was not very good at paying attention. I was quite good at getting attention, but I wasn't very good at paying attention. And I was very like slow to like recognize, you know, I've always been very compassionate, but I was very slow to recognize the what was going on in the moment with how someone was feeling. Like afterwards, I'd be like, "Oh wow, that must have been like what they meant or how they felt."
Hmm.
And going to prison, you know, you are forced to stop and to listen and to be like, "Oh, what's going on?" You know, you have to be very vigilant, but you also have to, you know, you're interacting with people all day,
Hmm.
you know, in one way or another. As soon as you come out of that cell, there's hundreds of people and they've all got problems and you know they all want to talk about things, and so you become very like socially tuned, and you also prioritize.
Mm.
You know, when you get thrown in a cell with just some, you know, grey tracksuit bomb and an orange blanket and a book, you really start to think, oh, what do I wish was here? And
Yeah.
you know, and it's, I'll tell you for free, it's not the iPad or the, you know,
Wow.
all the things that we think, you know, on a daily basis. We're like, oh, you know, I want this, I want that. No, it's not. It's, you know, a conversation with someone you love.
Mm.
It's, you know, a moment that you wish that you could have back. It's, you know, just being able to sit in silence, you know, with someone else. And those are the things that you start to, and you really do, you start to, you know, prioritize things. So I think that going through that experience has developed me as a person in a way that I can be truly present with other
Hmm.
people. Um, yeah, I
Amazing.
guess that's probably the way to answer that question. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you. Brilliant. And yeah, that last part, hearing that like it's reminded you how important it is in life to be heart-centered or to be pursuing love and meaning for ourselves, um, above the tasty cake, the shiny iPad, the sparkling this. Wow. And yes, what a fantastic insight. Thank you. So you'd finished the MOE course and you were about to finish serving your sentence. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Hmm.
I finished, and then I think I had about 8 weeks left,
Yeah.
before I was going to be released on tag.
Yeah.
So,
And
um,
in that moment, so you finish the course and yeah, your course leaders and your course mates were all talking about um who will coach and like what happens next with coaching in each of our lives, who came to mind for your first coachees?
You mean in terms of like, we coach someone that we know? Is that what you mean during the course?
After you'd finished the course, so you might have done, yeah, you'd done some coaching with some people on the course. You'd maybe done some coaching with someone outside of a course, and then once you're a qualified coach, who were the people or the group of people or the specific individuals that you already knew in your life
Right.
that came first to your
Yeah.
mind of like, this is who I think I'm going to coach?
Yeah, well, I mean, naturally, I was surrounded by people that were going through quite challenging times in their life.
Yeah.
Um, whether many or any of them knew what coaching was or were interested in what coaching was,
Mm.
was a bit different. But I did make friends in prison, and there were a lot of people that I would, walk around with, and in open conditions as well. You can walk around for hours.
Mm.
You can walk around the prison for as long as you want. So I would talk to them about this course, and I would say, how much I love coaching and what coaching is, and then, some of them would say to me, "Oh, well, hey, I want some of that. Like, give me some coaching." Yeah, so I started coaching some of the guys, in prison and just kind of like getting that practice in. And we would walk around for hours, and I would just be like doing this coaching,
Yeah.
and at that point, I was still learning, and sometimes I'd be like giving a little bit of advice by accident, and
Of
saying,
course.
"Oh no, actually, you can do that, right?" Yeah, and then I just kind of kept like developing those skills, in that environment. And some of those guys, by the end of those conversations, they were like, "Oh yeah, I've like had this insight, and I'm gonna like go and do this." And I think to, you know, which was a really beautiful thing to see. And then, yeah, as I left, I was like, "Oh, okay, like this is like an actual thing now. Like this is 100% possible."
Mm.
Like I am now a qualified coach. I have a little bit of coaching experience, and I have all the things I need to like start a coaching business and actually like start coaching people. I was like, wow, like this is a real thing. And I remember I like sat in my room and I was like, I feel like I've made the impossible possible. Like,
Brilliant.
you know,
Brilliant.
yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine a lot of those conversations with other inmates were sometimes like coaching in the moment and sometimes coaching outside of a kind of formalized session structure that's maybe like timed or that's contracted. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, I remember there was one particular guy who, you know, um, I said, "Hey, I need to practice coaching." And he was like, "Well, hey, I have these challenges. Like, do you want to help me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So we would like every day we would, I'd go to the gym, and then afterwards I'd meet up with him, we'd have a coffee, and we'd just like walk around
Mm.
the prison, which is about a kilometer, um, around the outside. And so for about an hour, we would do that coaching, and
Mm.
I'd do that every day. And there were a few others as well, but yeah, it was obviously very informal, unpaid.
Mm.
You know, yeah, it was just, I really want to practice this, and
Mhm.
and yeah, and he had some challenges. So, but yeah, there was obviously a lot of coaching in the moment. I was also a listener with the Samaritans as well. And
Mhm.
they in their training, there's a lot of that reflection and,
Nice.
and clarification and those kind of things as well. It's a similar.
Yeah.
I mean, they call it in prison. They call it being a listener. That's what they
Mm.
call it.
Like this person's a
Um,
listener.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
So on every wing they have a listener,
Uh-huh.
and their job is to someone press their bell and ask for a listener at any time of day. That person will go to the cell and stand there, and their job is to listen,
Wow.
essentially. Yeah, it's run by the Samaritans in every prison across the country. Yeah,
That's
yeah. It's a
incredible.
it's a beautiful program. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I was a coordinator, and I was a listener, and it's quite an intense job. You get the officers banging on your door at 4 o'clock in the morning. you know, they take you down to the seg and say that, you know, this guy is having a really bad time, and you just stand there and you just listen.
Wow.
You know, yeah.
Wow, what a blessing.
Yeah.
We talked so much about listening being the most powerful coaching tool on the MOE course, and wow.
Yeah, no, yeah. The listeners, big shout out to the Samaritans and the listeners. They do some really amazing work. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And yeah, talking about coaching, talking about having had this experience in prison, um, how many times a week or day are you refreshing Spark Insight's website for their vacancies or careers page? Because that's got to be the full circle moment, right?
Right, yeah. So what's really actually funny about this is that while I was still in prison, I started applying for roles at Spark Inside.
Great.
And, you know, and it was like roles that I was like really not qualified for. It was like, you know, they're head of something, or, you know, whatever it was. And they, you know, respectfully declined naturally. But yeah, and I kept kind of, you know, applying for these roles, and I was like, you know, I did a bit of what was his name? Daniel Bedingfield. Do you remember him? When he sent in like to the record label like every day until eventually they would like listen to his music.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I kind of did a bit of that with Spark Inside, and eventually I ended up having a chat with some of their coaches, and they were like, you know, they were like, basically they said, you know, stop applying for jobs, but we'll have a chat with you. Right?
We get the message, but please stop.
Yeah. So yeah, so I ended up having a chat with some of the guys there, and you know, they're all really wonderful people, and I was able to have a chat with the coach as well, Luke, who I know has been on the podcast with you guys, who's an amazing guy, and I just had a chat with them, and they made like a referral for me to, you know, work with some other charity organizations and companies as well.
Great.
And with some of them I did, you know, there was a charity called Standout who are absolutely amazing. And I got to sit down with their CEO and like have a chat with those guys as well. And, you know, and it was that kind of full circle moment.
Great.
Like those were the kind of conversations that I've been having. And for me, it's not been about like getting the job. It's been about like exploring this like beautiful moment of coming round full circle.
Yeah.
And you know, and like when I went to Standout, they were like, and Redemption Roasters as well, they were like, we've heard of you. like they met you while you were in prison as a prisoner, and you were, you know, in there like working in the staff mess or whatever, and they remember you.
Yeah.
And now you've been invited to an interview on the outside, like you know. And I remember that, you know, the guys used to say to me when I was in prison, they were like, why are you even trying? Like, why do you even bother like doing these jobs and these courses and all this kind of stuff? Like, when you leave here, like, you're not even going to put it on your CV. Like, you're never going to like speak to any of these people again.
Yeah.
You know, and then I walk into an interview like last month, and they're like, oh yeah, we remember you. Like, you were always working really hard, and you were always like, you know, talking about things and had that insight and all these other things. So yeah, like it was a real like full circle moment, and it just kind of showed that whatever environment you're in, whatever situation you're in, like whatever challenges you're facing, if you just try and show up with your best self, like you never know where that's going to go.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
you never know who that person's going to be, or where you're going to see them again, you know.
Yeah. And a really helpful reminder that we've all got this part in us that says, oh no, like you're never going to use this. It's, you know, this isn't worth doing. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you putting the energy into this? That just tries to keep us in our comfort zone, because it loves us, and it wants safety and comfort for us, and how powerful it can be when we have the strength or capacity to overcome that voice and do something that might lead, that we don't know where it'll lead.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And just coming to the end of the time, so I'm going to run some quick fire questions past you. I want as brief an answer as possible. Starting off with most used social media platform in your personal life, if any.
Oh, that would have to be LinkedIn.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What change would you like to see in the coaching community?
More people talking about love.
I love that. Does ketchup live in the fridge or the cupboard?
Mm, I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Ah,
I don't really like
interesting.
ketchup, so.
Okay. How much of a coaching impact is the relationship you create with your coachee, and how much is the specific actions or words you say during a session?
90-10.
To the relationship you create?
Yeah.
Really strong answer. Okay. And lastly, what's your favorite physical stretch?
Oh, that's a really difficult one. Why is that the hardest question? Um, I love a good hamstring stretch.
Say no more.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
yeah.
Um, do you have a question that you'd like to leave our viewers with?
Um, yeah, I think to anyone listening, um, question that I've been asking recently, which I think is really important, is that if you think about a situation that you have in your life, it's quite simple. If you think about a situation you have in your life, where's the love?
Hmm.
It's a question I've been asking a lot recently, and I think it's really powerful and really important, but so simple at the same time.
Yeah, where's the love in this? Amazing.
Yeah.
Inspirational. Thank you so much for joining us on Podventures, Isaac. And yeah, I'd be really excited to see where your coaching path leads you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure and another full circle moment.
Yeah, of course. Brilliant. Thank you. And there ends our podcast chat. Wow,
I love
I'm
it.
so inspired. This is what an incredible, yeah, what an incredible amount of like insight and yeah, love that through thread of like where's the love and that like being heart-centered and finding the meaning in life. Amazing. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Like it just the whole Mo family. Like every time I talk
It's
to
so sick,
anyone
isn't
from
it?
Mo, it's just such a beautiful, like if I think about the most beautiful moments of the past year of my life, like the majority of them have been talking to someone who's in some way been involved with Mo.
Yeah.
It's just such a magical place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, awesome. Wicked. And how was that for you?
Yeah, yeah, it was good. I think yeah, I always find it difficult to answer questions around like how do you feel about this,
Mm,
which is something that I've been working on for a little while now. But yeah, but no, yeah, it was great. It was great.
wicked.
I love having those. I like having difficult conversations as much as I like having like really easy conversations,
Uh-huh.
and I feel like that conversation moved between the two. So
Mm,
yeah.
yeah, wicked.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Podventures on the Mo podcast. I am Kate, your co-host alongside Alex. If after listening to today's episode you feel compelled to share your story, please email info@mofoundation.com. We would love to hear your story and have you here as a guest on the podcast. If you have been enjoying the Mo podcast, please do leave a review. It helps the team so much understand what you want to hear more of, what type of guest speakers you enjoy. If you want to recommend a guest speaker who you think we should be talking to, let us know. We will endeavour to feature them. If you love Mo so much that you don't ever want to miss an update, subscribe to our channel so that you will be notified every time a new episode comes out and you won't miss a thing. That's all from us today. See you next time.